He got fired from Kane. Now we ain't got no shame. So we started a pod. Chuck Yates needs a job.
Hey everybody, welcome to Chuck Yates Needs a Job, the podcast. My guest today is Darla Farmer, Hope for Three. Welcome in, Darla.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let me set this up for the audience.
Okay.
Darla is an expert on autism. She started a nonprofit dealing with autism. She is sitting there going, why in the hell am I on an energy podcast? It is the #1 rated energy podcast. I will say, if I'm
excellent,
if I'm patting myself on the back. But so Darla, I sent this to you, but I'll just say it for the audience.
Sure.
Is about 2 weeks ago, Colin McClone, the CEO of Digital Wildcatters, had a knock on his door. It was a young man who clearly had autism of some sort, thought he was being chased by a woman that was going to kill him. Colin brought him in, calmed him down, kind of gathered the situation, called the police, got the police to come out.
Right.
Police officer that came out was a really good guy, so this is not in any way, shape, or form an attack on the police, but clearly didn't know how to handle the situation. Sure. Turns out when they kind of got the kid calmed down, went through all the facts, turns out this was somebody scamming a kid. The kid had been advertising, hey, hire an autistic kid to mow your lawn,
Sure.
and he was getting scammed. And so Colin put out that tweet, got a lot of likes, a lot of engagement, a lot of direct messages, private messages to Colin saying, thank you so much for doing that. So we really appreciate you coming on because we need to know about this.
Absolutely.
So tell me about autism. Tell me about the situation. What do we need to be thinking? I leave it to you.
Well, kudos to you and Colin both for helping us
Don't
raise.
give Colin kudos. It'll only go to his head. But
well, thank you for helping us generate awareness about autism. It is greatly needed, but also for Colin to have enough, I guess, energy to contact the police and help this young man out. So we appreciate that. I guess what you could start with is with the autism community, there are so many things that aren't known that people look at all individuals as Rain Man. That's not the case. There are different levels of autism. They've taken away the DSM-5 in the legal language, if you will, but it can range from very mild, which might be just some social problems, but married, drive, date, live a normal life, but might have a few social problems or things along that line. I
hate to say this because this is going to sound negative. I don't mean it to, but maybe somebody's just slightly odd.
Yeah,
is unique. That kind of a unique?
There
I like
you go.
that. There we go.
Unique is the word. So then you might have an individual middle level of the spectrum, if you will, and that could be a person who needs some support, possibly nonverbal. About 40% of all individuals with autism are nonverbal, but can still kind of function and, dress themselves and eat, but may need some support and potentially have some regular education classes so long. Then you might have an individual that's on the lower end of the spectrum that perhaps has no life skills, will always need support. And so it's an odd disorder that we don't know the cause, we don't know the cure, but it is very, very treatable, and you can live a normal life. But what people don't recognize or realize is our individuals, their brains are wired differently. So what might be common and normal to you and I is not common to them. As an example, see, it's very quiet in here, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Doesn't bother me, but
right.
I hear that light humming a little bit. You hear that?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Person with autism, it might be whoosh, 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 extremely loud. They don't always understand normal things that are what are common to you and I. Sensory disorder is a big part of, like I was just giving an example of the sound, the lights, things along that line. So a person with autism, such as in this case with this young man, obviously he's a go-getter. He's trying to earn his own money by mowing lawns, doing a good job, but he doesn't understand how people can intentionally, not unintentionally, take advantage of him because of his weaknesses. So by him advertising that he was autistic, unfortunately, someone cruel took advantage of him. Now, when you first meet a person with autism, typically they look just like you or I do. You can't see any exterior differences like an individual with Down syndrome or some other differences or challenges. So you don't know that they're autistic or have some challenges until you witness a behavior. A behavior is a form of communication. So this young man obviously was taken advantage of very cruelly. And when Colin got the police on board and got them involved, they obviously were not educated on autism and what that looks like, so they didn't know how to help him. They couldn't understand why he kept going back, as an example, why he kept taking these calls. And I think you also shared with me he kept giving them eBay cards. So he didn't understand the difference in 100%. All he knew is somebody is threatening me, I've got to do what they say. So he didn't quite understand that bridge between right and wrong, the good, the bad. And so the officer obviously didn't either. No offense to the officer, because in Fort Bend County, we work with police officers once a month, going in and training them on the characteristics of autism and engagement strategies. Not knowing where this gentleman, lives or where he was from. Obviously, they've not received that training. It is so crucial. The program's called Crisis Intervention Training, or TMR training. But it's a specialized group of 10 individuals or more that's a team within a police officer that can respond to mental health crisis as well as autism.
Well, can we do this? Can we do a mini version of that training right here and now? And maybe start with characteristics. So I meet somebody, what are characteristics I'm looking for to know that someone's possibly autistic?
Sure. Well, some might be they don't know social distance, facial cues, emotional cues. They can't read. Like you and I know if you're sitting here when you're angry, when you're upset, when you're aggravated, they might not recognize that. So they don't always know how to react in certain situations because they don't understand facial cues or emotions. That's one red flag.
Okay.
Another red flag is many, many times they won't look directly at you in the eye. And we have found out through videos and some other autistic individuals that they take 1,000 pictures of your face at once. And so they're not always going to look at you. They're going to look away. Very, very common characteristic. Another could be, as we were talking about, the sights, the sounds, sensory overload, huge and common, very common characteristic of autism. So what might be normal to you and I in sound or sight or smell is totally overwhelming for a person with autism. So I give an example when we're teaching. If an officer was to go up and tap on a driver's window and he's not looking at you and he's fidgeting, another characteristic, a lot of times individuals like to be on the same routine, same schedule, every day, all day. You get them out of that routine and you're going to see what? A behavior, because my behavior is a way of letting out that anxiety. So if he's knocking on the window, I'm not looking at you, I'm fidgeting because it is now 12 o'clock and I'm supposed to be at work at 12:01. Now all these sights and sounds, the car, the noise, the cars, the officer. You're going to do what? This officer's going to think, what the heck is wrong with this guy? He won't look at me. He won't roll down the window. But in his head, I'm late. You've interrupted my schedule. This light is too much. That siren is too much. That could turn into a very bad situation very quickly. That's why it is so important that we get our officers educated, our first responders educated. We also found out, not to change the subject, but fire departments get no training on mental health. There's a few modules they can watch, but they get absolutely no training on mental health. That's not right. That's wrong. Right. So we've got to change that, and we're working on that from our organization. But I think if people understood and were less judgmental and accepting and were just more aware of autism, they want the same things you and I want. They want to have friends. They want to be invited to birthday parties. They want to be in social groups, but they're awkward. They're a little different. They're uniquely.
We talk a lot on my podcast when we venture into mental health type stuff. Big word we use all the time is just be curious. Don't be mad. Don't be judgmental. Let's be curious. My priest Patrick has made and he's an eccentric fellow in his own right, but he's made a couple of appearances on the podcast, and his question is always, what's that all about? So I almost hear what you're saying is, I go tap on the window as the police officer, if somebody's fidgeting, being awkward. It should not be, hey.
Assumed.
Yeah, it should not be assumed. It should not be threatening. It should be, okay, what's this about?
Absolutely. And what I tell them is that should be your first red flag. So if you think through, he's not, of course they've got to use their training and common sense. But if he's not looking at them or very anxious, that should be a red flag. And so we're trying to provide that education and awareness to make them understand, I've got to approach this situation differently. This person might have a bit of a challenge. And don't ever hesitate to ask, do you have autism? Can we talk about that for a moment? And give them time to process that information. We also teach less is best. An example is, you and I went to Starbucks today and I said, would you like a grande mocha light frappuccino with soy milk? That's a lot of information for anybody. Just say cold drink, hot drink. Make it less. So if you can approach that individual with some compassion and understanding of what little you do know, it's a great opportunity to get education on what you can learn.
Does it sometimes these characteristics we're looking for? Because I have a lot of sympathy for police pulling someone over.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
that's a
job
I would be incapable
yeah.
of doing. Do the characteristics sometimes come off as threatening, and the officer's having to make that decision, or is there enough of a difference there that it's truly just we need to educate more?
Both.
Okay.
Honestly, both. And let me give you an example. When I was speaking about being regimented and scheduled and routine, which is hugely common, well, that officer has pulled that individual over. You've gotten him out of his routine. Another red flag. What did you pull me over? I have to be to work at 1 o'clock. That officer should go, whoa, we got a little problem here. That's when he needs to make that inquiry. Sir, do you have some unique challenges, or so there's some differences? Can we talk about this? Let's calm down. Let's talk about this. Big red flag. Now, of course, the officer without any education, or awareness, may think, okay, he's being very rude and disrespectful. But no, if you knew about autism and some other differences, then you would want to say, okay, sir, ma'am, calm down. Let's talk about this. Let's see how we can help each other. So no, it doesn't always show its ugly head, if you will, or its, differences, I like to say. But then it could be that they're just not looking, and they're talking to them, but it's over in this direction. So those are red flags that officers need to be aware of with our young adults, our children, our college campuses, because autism is now the leading and fastest growing developmental disability in the United States. In December of 2021, the CDC announced 1 in 44 children are now affected. So it's not going away. There is no cure. There is not that we want to cure autism. Some of our most brilliant individuals have autism. Elon Musk is on the spectrum.
Right.
Yes. The maker of Pokemon on the spectrum. Right. Yeah. And so we tell the kids, wouldn't you like to be friends with him? How cool would that be? He made over 900 characters. But it's just all about awareness and understanding and compassion.
So on that point, I don't want to change the subject, sure, but just a side question, is autism getting worse in terms of occurrences, or is it just now being diagnosed more than back in the day? Because like I was saying earlier, and I don't mean this as a negative, but that guy's odd. Yeah. We always had odd people,
right. Right. I think better awareness and our broader awareness and better diagnosis earlier is really kind of bringing it to the forefront now. It's always been around. It's always been around. And like you say, we just maybe didn't know about it back then when I was young or when you were young. And so it's more, when I started the foundation 11 years ago, I'd never heard of autism, didn't know anything about it. And so it's just now coming into the community, and that's why we work so hard as an organization, nonprofit, to raise awareness, because I didn't know what it was 11 years ago. And now I feel like I could go toe to toe, not with anybody, but a lot of people, because I've learned so much education from our parents and the community on what autism is. And so if we keep doing things like this podcast, things broadening the awareness in the community to let people know about autism, it's just going to be for the benefit of everyone.
So you've given us kind of characteristics to look for. You've given us a couple of pointers in terms of how to handle those situations. Do you have other pointers on how to handle someone with autism? Maybe not in a roadside,
Sure.
pulled someone over, but maybe you have an employee.
Yes.
Something like that.
I think you have to not be afraid to open dialogue. I would take a situation if you did have an employee with autism and one-on-one, take them to lunch. Hey, I've kind of noticed, you're really uncomfortable and want to be by yourself and not always with the group. Can you share something about that with me? A lot of times they just need somebody to talk to or to hear them before they are aware. They may not always be aware that they're acting or behaving that way. And there's nothing wrong with it. We all like to be alone. But that's also another clue, if you will, that you might have some challenges. If it's an individual is not very active with the group, is always a loner by themselves, and not saying that's a characteristic of autism, but it could be. But don't ever hesitate to open that dialogue with a person you work with or friends with and see how you can help. It may be something as little, well, tomorrow you're going to eat lunch with him. He's still going to be by himself, but, you're going to eat lunch with him to give him some comfort to start getting into those social situations. So I think don't be shy of making that approach. Be confident that you can make a difference in that person's life, even if it's a little one.
Gotcha. So let's maybe go back to the delivery room. We have a child, all this. How does autism manifest itself? Because what I've read, and I am wholly uneducated, so I really appreciate you coming on, is that it can potentially happen gradually. It can potentially happen later, 2 and 3 years old. What does that look like? Because I think, we've at least given a little bit of a context of people dealing with folks later in life. Now let's talk to parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, early intervention is crucial to getting our children to have better life outcomes. But let me give you an example with the triplets. They're the inspiration for Hope for Three, the Montgomery triplets, London, Lakin, and Lauren. The girls, born without complications, doing great. NICU 8 days, came home doing fantastic. Well, the girls, London, Lakin, and Lauren, Lakin was our little leader of the group. She was first one to walk, talk, say her ABCs, count, know her colors. She was doing incredibly well. At about 2.5, Mom, Hope, noticed that Lakin was regressing into her own little world, not wanting to play with her siblings, losing some of her speech, losing some of her eye contact. So she took her to the doctor, and the doctors told her, chill out, Mom. It's normal for triplets to be a little developmentally delayed. They've got their own little community, their own little language. Well, within 3 months, she lost all of her speech. She's 16 now, still nonverbal, totally regressed, lost most of her life skills, communicates through an iPad today. She throws a mean hoop. She's a great athlete, but she will always need some support for the rest of her life. So she was diagnosed, well, let me back up just a little bit. This was at about 2.5. Within about 6 to 9 months, the other 2 girls of the triplets, the 3 girls, were showing the same characteristics. So by the time they were diagnosed, they were now 4. First, at the time, PDD, NOS, pervasive development disorder, not otherwise specified, then full-blown autism. So although they started out meeting all of their milestones, doing incredibly well, they were diagnosed at about 4. Well, we missed that window of opportunity to get them early intervention, although it did start at the time, but it was so hard to find therapies and services that insurance would cover, that 2-year wait to get in specialized schooling. But they're finding now earlier and earlier some of the characteristics of autism. Not walking on your toes, no speech at the proper milestones, playing alone. Those are some characteristics when they're young. So if a new parent, they know in their gut, I want to tell you, most parents know in their gut, something's a little off with my little one. Don't be afraid of your intuition. You know your child best. And if you know they should be meeting their milestones, or they've met this milestone but not this one, have some concern. Talk to your doctor. But we highly, highly recommend that you visit a developmental pediatrician. A pediatrician, and by no means I don't have any education in the medical field, but your pediatrician is not always thoroughly trained on the characteristics of autism or what all of those, I don't like to say symptoms because it's not a disease, but characteristics look like. So we recommend, if you do have a concern, to visit a developmental pediatrician because they are trained in the field of autism.
So my dad is a doctor, and he describes himself as a retired country doctor and very old school. And the way he describes what you just said is because I was the nightmare parent. I have my first child. I'm calling dad every 20 minutes. And dad said, here's the key to pediatrics. If you're asking the question, is something wrong with my child? Your child's fine. When you're asking the question, what's wrong with my child? That's when you need to run it to ground. If your doctor says nothing's wrong, go get a second opinion. Because if you're asking what is wrong, just like you said, you know your child, you're getting a bad vibe, that's when you need to go run it to ground.
Excellent advice.
Yeah.
Excellent advice. And knowing...
Of course, you know what he also did? I would hurt myself and come in, Dad, it really hurts when I do this. He'd say, well, don't do that. Yeah. But
of course, best advice.
Yes. That being said.
Yeah. I think our parents have that gut intuition. Just like with Hope, she knew something was wrong. She knew in her gut and she kept trying, but then she also trusted her doctors.
Yeah.
So you don't know what you don't know. And that's why we work really, really hard at early intervention and early awareness. So you do know those signs and characteristics. But it takes a community to build upon awareness and education. So you do learn those signs. And so I compliment you for allowing us to share information today because you don't know what you don't know, all of us. And so if you, as a new parent, I think take that advice of, okay, he's doing this, but not this. Is he rocking back and forth? Is he lining things up? I say he or she. It is more common in boys than girls. But if they're lining toys up, if they're totally alone most of the time, walking on your toes, and not all children do the same thing. They say if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Every single person and child is unique and different. And they are diagnosing early on, but we have many adults, 38, had a grandfather, 68, was just diagnosed. And so I think individuals would rather have that answer of, at least I got an answer now. Now I can move on. Now I know why I did this or why I didn't do this. And so it's things like this and groups, hopefully like Hope for Three and other entities throughout our county and our city and our state that can provide that awareness to help our families because there's no, like I said, cause or cure. So it's not going away. It's something we have to adapt to. They shouldn't have to adapt to our ways.
Because another thing Dad would say, advice as well, is there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting a second opinion.
Agreed.
He said, a lot of doctors studied 2/3 of the information in school to hope they pass the test. So there's a third they never read.
Right.
But even more importantly, Dad says, if your doctor is not supportive of you getting a second opinion, you have the wrong doctor.
Exactly.
Because the doctor that cares about you, your children, et cetera, is like, hey, here's what I think. You want to talk to somebody else? Let's go find you somebody else.
Right.
And tell me, I'll get on the phone with them and tell them what I've observed and stuff. So I tell people that all the time from Dad, because I do think there's a reticence on a parent of, my doctor just said this. My doctor said this in a dismissive tone of what's wrong with you. And I've got 3 kids. And my first child, Charlie, literally at 8 months was speaking.
Mm-hmm.
At a year old, sentences.
Oh, my goodness.
18 months, full-on paragraphs. Couldn't get her to shut up. I mean, just blah, 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 blah. So when our daughter, Sarah, the middle child, was 18 months and was barely speaking a sentence, we were at the pediatrician, every day. Oh, my God, what's wrong? What's wrong? He's not speaking. And Dr. Bird was incredibly patient with us. Dr. Bird was like, in a very nice way, saying, Charlie's a freak. that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
We're not going to compare to Charlie. We're going to compare over here. But Dr. Bird was very patient and wonderful with us in terms of coaching us through it. So if your doctor is not like that, doesn't mean they're a bad doctor.
Right.
And I always say time and time again, I want the doctor that's really good. I don't care about the bedside manner. They can be a jerk, whatever. But if they're not supportive, you should do something.
Nobody knows your child better than you.
Exactly.
And if you have those cares and concerns and they don't take them seriously, I agree 100%. You need to move on and find that person who will align with you and your beliefs and take every concern that you have as a major concern. Because you're living with that child 24/7. You know that baby better than anybody. So it's got to be.
So early detection's important. Can we really change future trajectories?
Absolutely, 100%.
What's some of the stuff we can do there?
We've got a couple of stories, let me tell you about, that I'm so extremely proud of. We have a young man who, and I know Mom wouldn't mind me sharing, his name is Augie, and he just graduated and was accepted into Texas A&M's autism program. But at the age of 7, started at 3, they said he would never walk, he would never talk, he, might as well consider institution. Well, Mom's a teacher. And so you don't tell a teacher no, that your child can't do this. So her, along with the education system, worked with this child. Accommodations were made. And not to get off topic, that's a big part of what people don't know is their rights in the public school system. And love public school system, but they're not always going to provide or give you that information. You've got to explore and investigate. You have to be your child's own best advocate. But
give me just one or two things there. So if folks are thinking this through, what generally speaking are they entitled to in the public system?
Well, an advocate.
Okay.
They are entitled to accommodations, and you do not have to accept in your ARD meetings, which are parents and the school systems working together to create an IEP, an individual education plan for your child. You do not have to accept what they've said. You can leave that meeting without signing, which I'm not saying that's the right or wrong thing to do, but if you have enough education and understanding and they're still telling you no, then you ask for another ARD meeting and you don't sign anything. And get some advice that either we can connect you with that advice. We provide resources and referrals. We don't provide a direct service, but if you need to talk to somebody as an advocate or need an educator to support you with some information so you do make the right decisions on the behalf of your child, find people like Hope for 3, Navigate Texas, Autism Society that can connect you with resources to help you with that process. Those are your rights. And most parents don't know that. They think whatever the school system says, I have to go with. And I'm not against the school system. We work very closely. They allow us to come in and educate students and kids and counselors. So I'm 100%. But it's our parents' lack of education that they don't know, and they're not always going to be offered it. So you've got to have enough.
Well, there's got to be, and I hate to say this because no one's ashamed of their kids, but there's got to be shame as well in terms of, are you actually going to go out and advocate? Are you going to go fight the system and all that?
And there's a lot, I hate to say, a lot of cultural, not my kid, not my, a lot of cultural instances and all across the ethnic groups, not just one. But you've got our athletes, not my kid. I'm a runner. I'm a track star. I'm one of those guys that went to the Olympics, not my kid. And this is a true story. And he 2 years was in denial. And finally saw everything his wife was doing. And he finally said, I got to get on board. That is my kid.
Yeah.
I've got to advocate. I've got to do what's in his best interest. Maybe he's not going to be a lawyer. Maybe he's not going to be a track star, but he can darn sure contribute to society in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
All they need is the opportunity. We have a young man right now, has major degrees, went to college for 5 years. He's quirky, brilliant brain. Can't get a job because he can't get past the interview process. They want and need the same things we all want. They want to work. They want to make their own money, but they don't have those windows of opportunity that you and I have because they're judged by their quirkiness, by their lack of social cues, not being able to maybe answer instantly because I've got to process what you just asked me. So there has to be more understanding and acceptance because there's so many bright, brilliant minds out there that could do such a great job. As we were saying earlier, they're routine, scheduled. So they're great data entry people, great jobs that do you repetitive over and over, diligent, loyal. It breaks my heart sometimes to think that they're not provided the same opportunity as my child and your child. And my children are grown, but it's sad. It's sad. Community is so judgmental.
Well, and the other thing too, as we as a society are sitting here begging people to come work, you hate the fact that we've set up interviews, whatever the case may be, where we can't tap untapped potential.
Absolutely. And that's like this young man. He wants to be some field of paleontologist, and he can't even get into a museum or a field of study because of his autism. And it's just, you just want to wring somebody's neck and go, just listen, just give him a chance. And, his parents advocate for him strongly. He has had a few jobs now, but it's not in the field that he wants to be in. And that's not fair. That's not fair. So I hope that people are aware. I told my kids when they were little, wouldn't the world be a boring place if we were all the same? And so we've got these brilliant minds and brilliant people. And I go back to Elon, obviously. What a shame if we wouldn't allow them to be different and explore their capabilities, because they've got great minds and creative minds, and they just need a chance, need a door open.
Because it almost sounds like what you're saying to me, and I'm very uneducated on autism, but it sounds like it has nothing to do with intelligence. It's it's sensory perception, it's processing information in a different way.
You are very right. There is a young lady, I show a video about her. Her name is Carly Fleischman. She lives in Canada, but her parents didn't know. They did know when she was young that she had autism, but she's nonverbal. But she understood everything. She went to college. She's written 2 novels. She's been on this talk show circuit, and she communicates through an iPad. So as we learn and grow as a community and as a world, and understand that just because I can't speak doesn't mean I don't understand you. You need to understand me and work with me the way that I need to be helped to survive in this country, in this world. And so because they are can be nonverbal, or maybe not as giving the same cues as you and I sitting here talking, they still have that huge realm of intelligence. Absolutely. And so how can we educate to make others aware that they do have that intelligence? They are going to make a great employer. We just had 2, I don't know, it was all over the news, and I can't even think of what state. We had 2 or 3 instances of nonverbal autistic individuals that were valedictorian, that gave the speech through different means that was not verbal. Just because you can't talk, there's other forms of communication. So language is not your only form.
Oh, that's interesting. So something else I've read about autism is it usually doesn't reside alone. So there's always something potentially else with it. And, I think a lot of the reason Collin handled that situation really well, and I say this with love towards Collin, he's got more ADD than anyone I've ever met in my life. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't keep up with them, but there's usually something else. Is that true?
That is true. It is very, very common, not always, but that they have what they call a comorbid dual diagnosis, that they have potentially autism and OCD, autism, ADHD, autism, ADD. Yes, that is common, but not always, not in all cases, but it is very common for them to have a dual diagnosis. Yes.
Yeah, because ADD, I have a child that has ADD, and so I've actually learned a lot about it. Is you think it's scatterbrained? It's actually the over focus on something. You just have a tendency to focus too much on something, which is a phenomenal benefit for certain situations. I mean, when it comes to the creative, when it comes to one of the greatest trial lawyers on the planet is incredibly ADD, and it's because he can go in and focus on a case and know every fact about it to the exclusion of literally, did he eat that morning?
Right.
You know?
Right. No, and that also, we say, is one of the characteristics, is being a little obsessed with something. So it could be a book, a piece of clothing, an animal. We have a young man who went to Wharton Junior College for 2 years. He's now at U of H. He's on the spectrum. He's obsessed with elevators. He knows every button, make, model. I mean, you name it, and boy, he can tell you. So when I go places, I'll take pictures, and I'll say, okay, Jim, oh, Miss Farmer, that was the 1892 model, and it blah, 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 the name you name. So it's very common.
Otis Elevators, what are you doing? This is your guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He would make a great, great employee. But it's very common, even when we do talk to our police officers, if you do have a 24-year-old hanging on, got a beakie on his shoulder, that's his obsession. His blanket when he was a kid. Might have a teddy bear too. So what?
Yeah.
So yes, it is very common for our individuals with autism to be hyper-focused or something, or again, want that routine, that schedule. And so they would make great employees, but they just need that door open. They just need a chance. So hope that happens in the future. Yeah.
So tell me about Hope for Three.
Sure.
Tell me about founding it. Tell me about what it does. Tell me how folks reach you.
Sure.
All that good stuff.
Sure. Well, 2010, we found out a dear friend of ours was pregnant with what we thought was twins. She was working at Child Advocates of Fort Bend as a PR.
Ah.
Yeah.
By the way, quick plug for
Sure.
Child Advocates in Fort Bend County. I don't directly know this, but people I trust have told me this, that they are actually the model child advocates group in the nation. And basically what Child Advocates does, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they go into the court system, find kids that don't have advocates and say, I'm your guy.
You got it.
Yeah.
They're the voice for the children. It's called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocate. And the CEO of Ruth Ann Mefford is phenomenal.
Oh, she's amazing.
She has done great things for the kids in our community, in our county, in Fort Bend County. And I emulate some of the things they do strictly because I admire. I was a volunteer there for 17 years, so I love them.
Oh, that's cool.
That was my stomping grounds and where I got a lot of my nonprofit education. So that's where Hope was working.
So I met Ruth Ann, let's call it Rosenberg Women's Garden Club.
Yeah.
My mom's a member. And she came to my mom and said, I need your son's house on the house tour, because that's their big fundraiser.
My house was on the tour.
Yes. And anyway, and so I'm a little careful. And so mom brought that up and I said, okay. And it turns out the Episcopal Diocese has given a lot of money to Child Advocates. And anyway, I called my priest, Patrick, and I said, hey, Patrick, the Episcopal Diocese has given a lot of money to Child Advocates. They want to put my house on the tour. Is that okay? And Patrick, without missing a beat, goes, you will go to hell unless you don't do that. I'm like, really?
That's hilarious.
I go, you went straight to hell? And he goes, yes, I am playing the devil card right now on you.
That's funny.
10 minutes later, I'm calling Ruth Ann. Yes, you can have my
So
house.
do you live in Fort Bend County?
I do.
I did not know that.
Oh, I'm on 9th Street.
Oh my
in
heavens!
Richmond.
You're in the heart of Richmond.
I'm in the old Richmond house. You know, the house that has
gosh.
the lighted balls out in front?
Is that you? Oh my God.
You know my house?
I do know your house.
Well, the lighted balls allow any kind of joke to be told at any hour of the night. But need we digress? So,
okay, sorry.
We're off child advocates. Yeah. But anyway, it's amazing.
Group. Yeah, phenomenal group. They do great.
So
work
you're a volunteer working with them, okay.
I'm a volunteer. Hope is working with child advocates, and so when she got pregnant, we were so excited because she wasn't even trying to get pregnant. She had a 4-year-old little boy, Colin, and when she got pregnant, she was pregnant with twins. So we were all just, thrilled to death. All the ladies in the community got together, started planning a shower. We'd called them Princess A and B. Well, right before the shower, we find Princess C. She was hiding. So she was pregnant with identical African-American, obviously triplets, and the odds are 1 in 200 million. So they were a little special before they even got here, but I was at the hospital when they were born, along with a few other friends, and they were actually born on the anniversary of my mother's passing. So I say God took one angel and gave us 3 back.
Oh my gosh.
But they were born without any complications. Hope delivered them, just fine. And they were doing quite well in NICU, little jaundice, for about 8 days, came home doing exceptionally well. Well, we all got together, ladies in the community, and we set schedules and tried to help them with bottle feeding, diaper changing, so forth. And so that was going well. Well, after a while, everybody's got to kind of take care of your own family, so they wander away. But I empty nest at the time and, was in good health. So I just decided to stay and help and stayed a committed helper and good friend to the family. And so at about 2.5, as I was sharing earlier about Lakin, that's when Hope noticed that she was kind of regressing. She was our leader, and she was kind of regressing and, showing some characteristics, but we didn't know at the time about autism.
Right.
So when she took her to the doctors, got the diagnosis later, and then the other 2 girls started showing the same characteristics, and by the time they were 4, they were all 3 diagnosed, first with PDD, NOS, and then with autism. Well, what I watched this family go through was sort of horrific. They almost lost their home, their car. We couldn't get therapies and services that were covered by insurance. A lot of times insurance looks at it as a social disorder and not a medical necessity. And 2 years, again, 2-year wait to get in specialized school. So I said, Hope was looking for resources, just anything she could to help the girls. Couldn't find anything. And so I said, okay, let me help. Let me see what I can do. I couldn't find anything. And I'm just getting, my feet wet in the world of the autism community. So my husband and I have always been entrepreneurs. We called Hope and Eric over to our house. We sat at my kitchen table, and I said, Hope, we both, all 4 of us, said, Hope, let us create this nonprofit, her and Eric, her husband, let us create this nonprofit to help your family and families like yours. So after we all shed a few little tears, it took a lot for them to commit to let us do that, because they're very proud, private, hardworking people, and they got it. They've got this. We can take care of our own. You cannot take care of 4 children, but 3 with special needs in the same household, much less triplets. So I think they finally realized that we can't do this alone. It does take, a community. So we had some names already picked out, and we came up with Hope for 3 was the choice. Well, we had to backtrack a little bit, because in Texas, if you have the same word, I believe, I don't know if I have everything correct, you have to contact that other company who has that. So there was a company out of Dallas called Hope something. I don't even remember. It's been so long. I had to get permission from her to have Hope for 3. She said, okay, no problem. Well, she never followed through with it. So we came up with Blessed Be Hope for 3 is our official legal name, but we go as Hope for 3. And then we have a DBA as Hope for 3 Autism Advocates. So we started 2011, so we're going into our 11th year this year. And we started out kind of as a resource hub, because we recognized there was a gap in trying to identify service providers, another parent to talk to. So we started out as a resource hub. So where we are today, anybody from anywhere can contact us and need a doctor, a therapist, recommendation for a school. I'm moving in from California. Where's a good neighborhood? So we provide resources, referrals, and support to anybody, anywhere, out of the country, out of the state, not just local. But we will connect you with that resource. The financial component of what we do, The cost of care for one child for 1 year for one child to receive therapies and services is $60,000 a year. The lifetime cost of care is $2.4 million. How do you do that with 3 kids? Much less. I mean, 1, but 3. So we realized that there was also a big gap in financially helping our families. So we created a program. It's called Family Assistance and Resource Support. The financial component of that program is family assistance. Qualified families in Fort Bend County only can come to us and apply through a pretty rigorous application process for financial aid. We will provide financial aid for almost any autism-related need. We never give money to a parent or a caregiver, but to an approved service provider, treatment facility, or vendor. And our 10-year goal was to give away $1 million. We did it in 9, and today we're at about $1.5 million that we've awarded to local families. So very honored by that we have that privilege to do that. But those are our 2 main programs where we started out in 2011. From there, we ventured off into the public school systems, and we created a program called It's Cool to Care. We go in and we educate nurses, students from pre-K up till 12, but counselors, nurses, students, educators on the characteristics of autism. But we basically go in and educate and empower young people about other young people with unique differences, which is autism. That also encompasses an anti-bullying campaign. And we've, probably 17,000 students so far. And we do that all over the greater Houston area. Love that program because the kids are just so, when, you get stories like, oh, is that why my brother does that? Oh, okay, now I get it. Oh, I didn't know why he made those animal sounds. So it's just a fun little program that really opens our kiddos' eyes to why people are different. And from there, we created a teen huddle. We have a core group of about 25 teen volunteers who host 2 programs, Parents Time Out and Sibling Sessions. Parents Time Out, parents get to bring us all their kiddos, kids with autism, kids without autism. We have the honor and privilege of keeping them for 3 hours. We partner with local churches, and parents get to go what we think is a hot date night. No, they're resting, sleeping, buying groceries.
They used to, my ex-wife, we always had the joke of, what do you want to do on date night? Let's go check into a hotel and go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's what we try and encourage that, but we find out what they're showering. They're doing things that they couldn't do. And so the other component is sibling sessions. The 2 young individuals that came to me and said, can we do this teen program? One was a young lady who attended our first luncheon. And when she figured out how much it costs to raise a kid with autism, she said, can we do something for teens and for families? I just want to give back. Kirsten Overgaard Davis, now she's married. And then Joseph Buckle, he lived in a family with 3 sisters. One of the girls had autism. He knew the sacrifices his sisters had to make because of a special needs sibling in the family. So he wanted to do something for siblings. So we came together with their parents, and those 2 young individuals at the time, I think they were 14 and 15, created the Teen Huddle. But with the sibling sessions, teens from neurotypical teens are partnered with the sibling in the family, not the child with autism, but the sibling. And every other month for the duration of a school year, they have a teen mentor. And we try and go fly kites, go to the movies, go to the trampoline park, just so they have a day to feel special. As you might imagine, unintentionally, our siblings might get put on the back burner because a special needs child does need so much attention. So we give them a day to feel special. Some of our teens who started this program are still in contact with their buddies, and this has been, 8 years ago?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's my favorite program, all that we do. Matter of fact, just the young lady who is the teen leader now, her buddy, Courtney, who is married, lives in another state, is OT now. They still talk. It's just a beautiful kind of little romance and brotherhood or sisterhood, I guess, if you will. But, from the Teen Huddle, and It's Cool to Care, then we started CIT, Crisis Intervention Training. That's where we work with, primarily Fort Bend County is our primary partner, but we go in once a month for the CIT sessions, and we educate law enforcement on the characteristics of autism and engagement strategies. We now go to state, I guess, for the last 5 or 6 years, and law enforcement from all over the state of Texas. We also provide that same education and awareness to them. That grew into a little program called Police Traffic Stops and Positive Driver Outcomes. That is the coolest program. We partner with different police departments, and we hold a little session of about 30-minute classroom time. It's a class of 10, and these are drivers that are on the spectrum. 14 of coming of age to drive are either currently driving. I think our oldest attendee's been 46. But we have a little 30-minute classroom session with the police officers, really kind of get that comfort level and just kind of teach rules of the road, safety, cautions, and things like that. Then we go outside and actually have a vehicle with a police car behind it, and we emulate traffic stops. Some of our kiddos will never drive, but they still get that same opportunity as another teen would to have that safety driver course.
And is that kind of two-way street? The
Absolutely.
kids are learning, the officers are learning.
I kid you not. Every session we've held, the officers are like, that was more impactful for me than it was the kids. They recognize and realize, number one, they're rule followers. So their hands are on and they're not going to move. They're not going to do anything until that officer tells them to. So they get that insight into autism because a lot of our kids do drive and young adults, still driving or on the road. So it's providing so much awareness to them or what are autistic individuals, how they might react. Inevitably, when we do the sirens, and it's only for a second because you've got half your kids doing this and they're like, I never do. They recognize, okay, they're following every instruction, but they might not be looking at that officer.
Right.
So what we tell the officers are give them step-by-step instructions. We call it a task analysis. You and I know when we get up in the morning, we got to put our socks on, our underwear, and our pants on. If you can tell an individual with autism exactly what you want in the order that you want it, you're going to get a better outcome. Sir, could you take out your license out of your billfold and hand it to me? Thank you. Now you've got their first name. They're going to respond to their first name better than they are going to Mrs. Farmer, because less is best, remember. Now I'd like you to reach into your glove box and give me your insurance. Give them time to process that. So they recognize and see that. So it's really been an eye-opener for our members of law enforcement as well. And just, I love all the programs, but I like those. We do parent empowerment. We, once a month, a BCBA is a board-certified behavior analyst. They're at the top of the food chain of our therapists. We offer weekly sessions, four times a month, yes, free of charge. Our BCBA comes in, and it's all Zoom right now, of course, which is more convenient for our families. But she gives tips, strategies, and techniques free of charge. Hope for 3 pays for it, but it's free to our caregivers and parents. We allow enough time if they have a situation, a matter, that they can discuss it as a group. And so you've got that peer-to-peer support, but you've also got a BCBA to give that support. And so it's really been a successful program. We've been doing about 1.5 years, and we've now made it mandatory for our parents and our caregivers to attend these sessions because our parents don't know what they don't know either. You're already overwhelmed with a special needs child. How do I have time to research and study and be that voice, be that advocate for my child? So we get to do that. We get to help them along that journey. So we have we don't like to call them support groups, but we call them gatherings. But we have gatherings for our guys. They meet once a month in the evening. And when we started in 2018, our first 90 days, we had over 60 dads come out to meet. And it's just a peer-to-peer. We provide bites and beverages, and they just network. And you just learn from other dads. It is okay. It is okay. But they share stories and just camaraderie and friendship.
I had a podcast, I think 2 months ago with a fella who had gone through a really tough time during COVID. And he's a good friend and a very prominent energy executive. And we talked about that seriously, despite where it's gone in popular culture, just the words "me too" are 2 of the most powerful words on the planet, because you sit there and you feel shame, you feel whatever, and it's blah, 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 blah. Hey man, me too,
Yeah.
And so getting 60 guys together, because we're not good at that.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
our inclination is to be quiet and go solve something.
I got this.
Alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got this.
And
This
so
is
being
my
able
family.
to provide that forum. And I actually like the fact that, hey, you've got to come.
Yeah.
You may sit there in the corner and not say anything, but you've got to come.
Exactly. And it's the feedback we get from our guys is not only it's been a lot of, I didn't know anybody else experienced the same thing I did. I didn't know that other people had the same problems I did. And yeah, little Johnny's still going to the bathroom. He's 9. He's got to wear a diaper at night. I didn't know anybody else did that. I was ashamed.
Yeah.
And so it's been very helpful to our dads that have young adults on the spectrum to help educate our new dads. It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. It just might not be the same journey that you expected, but it's going to be a good journey.
Yeah.
So it's been a great moral support for our dads. It's just.
And what I will say to my people, my species, males, and we've talked about it a lot on the podcast, is shame hates words.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to get rid of shame. Unfortunately, the only way you can do that is to talk about it.
Absolutely.
And to talk about it with others. I mean, it's the only way. And it sucks because we're not wired that way.
No, you're not.
But,
and I hate to say it, but no, you're
yeah,
not.
we're really not.
It's given them a comfort place of no judgment. And I think, I'm going to cry here. Some of our dads have they're different religions, they're different cultures. And to see them all come together, I don't care what color, what religion, what culture, but to see them come together and provide that support outside of that meeting has been just phenomenal. We have a couple of pastors, and I mean, they're not there to teach anything or preach anything, but good moral support. But some of our Muslim families have now gone over to visit this Christian church and just outside of the autism world. And so there's been such beautiful friendships that have developed because of autism.
I mean, the thing that's crazy to me is when you look at the world's religions, and I'll get these numbers all wrong and probably booger this up, but I mean, 80% of the world's religions are two sons of Abraham that got into a fight. I mean,
I know,
come on,
really.
guys. We're talking about a family feud here.
Exactly.
I mean, how far apart are we really?
Exactly.
On all this stuff. And
but I think it's just a reinforcement of we really all kind of the same. Just don't be shy about my kid's not the A student. My kid might not ever play football, but he gives one hell of a hug.
Yeah.
Well,
you just want them happy. You want them happy.
Absolutely.
And you want them to find a passion.
Yeah.
I mean, I love live music. Couldn't play an instrument. If you paid me $1 million, I can play Jump by Van Halen on the piano, and that's it. And I don't even
You're
do
telling
that
off
very
on your
well.
age now.
Yeah, exactly. But my oldest child, musician, and will literally sit up for 36 straight hours, come downstairs and say, "Hey, Dad, listen to this beat I wrote." And I think the beat kind of sucks. I don't understand it. I'm like, well, whatever. Sounds like garbage to me. But just the passion you see of, I created this, I did that. That's what you want.
Exactly.
And so, yeah.
Exactly.
The preconceived notions that parents have of they need to go be quarterback of the football team. Who cares?
What? We need plumbers. We need electricians. Not everybody's cut out for college. I don't mean that education or just light education in the least, but you've got to have your tradesmen. You've got to have your door greeters. You've got to have individuals who can punch holes in a perfect alignment. There's other crafts besides a college university, and some of our kids aren't going to make it to college, and that's okay.
Well, and you're Fort Bend County, so you'll appreciate this. My dad's always said, hey, if you're the best at what you do, you will be very well compensated in this world. And the richest person down in Fort Bend County for the longest time built fences.
Exactly.
I mean, Mr. Kasurik built the best fences on the planet.
Exactly.
And they got a big old freaking house. I mean, so.
I know
yeah,
it. I know. And so I really, really hope people just take to heart that we're all a little quirky. I think we all have a little bit of autism, if you want to know the truth.
I'm the poster boy, so yeah, I get that.
I used to iron sheets, so I mean, come on. But I just hope if you just give a little bit of compassion and understanding and take a step back and give them a moment, lend a hand, lend an ear, especially for our parents and our caregivers. They're not going to, and especially our male figures, share with you how hard it truly is because they got this. They're proud, just like Hope and Eric at the time. very, very hardworking, proud individuals and pride. You can't do it. It takes a community. It takes a village. And we can be that village, but you got to want to. And so I think, by us keeping Hope for Three out in the community, raising awareness, talking to people like you today is just going to further not only our mission, but individuals who really care.
Yeah.
And
No, it is. I mean, the research shows the pressure point for a man is our ability to fix things. And when we can't, that's when we feel shame.
Exactly.
That's when we withdraw. So we can't do that. And in situations, instead of getting angry, let's get curious.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Advice.
So how do people reach Hope for Three? Website, social media?
Sure.
How do we do that?
We're on all avenues of social media. It is Hope for Three on Facebook. And then our website is hopefor3.org, O-R-G. Phone number is 281-245-0640. Email, contact@hopefor3, all spelled out. Contact@hopefor3.com.
And it's 3 THREE.
And the 4 is FOR.
Okay.
So yeah, it's Hope and then FOR and then 3 spelled out. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got a dedicated, phenomenal staff of 10 now. We've got 4 part-time people, 4 full-time people, 6 part-time. We will answer you. If we don't answer you the day you contact us, it will be within 24 hours. We've got several of our staff members who are parents of autistic children, and they live and breathe this mission every day. And so they are eager to lend support, lend an ear. And our family assistance director, Rowena, is just phenomenal. Never met anyone more compassionate. And she's got 2 boys on the spectrum. So would love to help in any way. We do get out in the community as much as possible, let people know who we are, what we do, and how we do help. And we can always use donations as well. That's what keeps us going. But doesn't always have to be the mighty dollar. Your time, your volunteerism, your skill set, we welcome those. Always, always.
Well, you're doing great work, and I appreciate you coming in and talking with us.
I appreciate you having me. It's an opportunity that we're honored to be here. So thank you very much.